and welcome. My name is Carol Carter, and I'm the founder and the CEO of GlobalMindED. And we are all about creating a capable, diverse talent pipeline to get more women, people of color, first generation to college, and other underrepresented populations into the education, employment, economic mobility, and leadership pipeline. And on the topic of leadership today, we are delighted to have our young leaders that are under 30, most of them. And if you're over 30, you can still join this group if you're young at heart. And it is just going to be a real honor and pleasure to have each of you who are joining us today get to know these incredible emerging leaders and the impact that they're going to have on the world and their goals and dreams for themselves and also for this organization on how they might be able to better serve each of you. So that's just a little bit about GlobalMindED. This is a week that we are celebrating our 2020 graduates. Because of COVID-19, many of them were not able to have the ritual and the honor of graduating. So we have several events, of which this is one. And there's another one tomorrow, Dr. Nita Mosby-Tyler. We have Rocio Perez, our Director of Leadership, on Thursday. And then something very special on Friday. We have 3 or 4 college presidents of color. We have a singer, we're having a graduation, a brief graduation ceremony, and a really wonderful party. So we really wanted to be able to do some special things for students this year who may not have families to support them, may not have those bigger networks, but we want them to know that we are their network and we're really here to be able to be responsive to their needs. So we're delighted you're here, and I wanted to just start off so you have a little bit of history of how this started. There's one of our members, Phoung and her colleague, Julie Wilmus, who she couldn't join us this afternoon, but they were inspired to start a young professionals leadership group for GlobalMindED. And I just wondered if Phoung could launch us by telling us a little bit about her personal story and how she and Julie had the vision to create this wonderful group for young professionals. Phoung?
Oh, hi, thank you, Carol. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So my name is Phoung Dinh, and I've known Carol for, was it 3-4 years now? It's been quite a while. I was introduced to her by Dr. Arlen Myers, and right after graduating from a graduate school with my degree in healthcare administration, I was introduced to Carol and GlobalMindED, and it was during that time too that I was really invited to be on several boards and advisory boards. And the one major difference that one major challenge that I saw on those boards was that they lacked age diversity. And as I was really gaining my experience with working in the industry as well as participating in these boards for these large and small organizations, I realized that, well, we could bring more young professionals to the table and help make decisions along with those who are very experienced in the field. So Carol, I first got to be on Carol's advisory board for GlobalMindED. And then she invited me to the GlobalMindED conference. My first conference was in 2018, and it was amazing. And again, I did recognize that this is a conference, an education conference aimed to improve the lives of students and young people, but there was not a lot of young people there. So after the conference, I was able to attend some events, and Julie Wilmes, who is the co-founder of GlobalMindED Young Professionals. We met and really just hit it off. We really gelled like really good friends. And then we, thought of, okay, well, how can we bring more age diversity to GlobalMindED? And then slowly, as this community grows, then more age diversity in boards and other industries and in leadership positions. So Carol, the amazing person that she is, helped us jumpstart YPAC and the global-minded young professionals, as well as Saleh, who is not a part of the team anymore, and who was the conference director, as well as other members in GlobalMindED. And so that's how we got started. And our goal was to really bring the voice of the younger generation to solve industry level challenges, be part of the diversity, inclusion, and equity conversation. Our goal was to also mentor young leaders, students, and bring practical advice to help them in their academic and career endeavors. Because when they connect with high-level CEOs and leaders in the industry, the advice must, you know, because they're so far from graduation, it's been, well, I don't want to say years, but it's been a while since they have had those experiences with taking the practical steps to get to the next level. They might forget, and they would always say, reach for your dreams, and always see what you're passionate about and go towards that route. But, you know, what are the small specific steps to get there? And we are the ones who will be providing that bridge to the next step. So one, mentorship. We wanted to connect them socially through happy hours. So we had a happy hour at least once every month, and gather all the young professionals together, give them a network and friendship to depend on, and also contribute to the GlobalMindED mission to build a diverse talent pipeline, to improve age diversity in leadership positions and in boards. So that was that was how we got started. And so during the last year's GlobalMindED conference, Carol and the team helped bring over 15 young professionals to the conference, and they connected with 100 students, high school and college students who were part of the leadership academy at GlobalMindED, to connect with them. And then we also had the opportunity to go to sessions, meet with industry leaders, and it was amazing experience. Everyone loved it. And so now, since Carol, I'm gonna reveal my age, where she said that young professionals are under 30. Well, I'm over 30. And then at that time when when we started the young professionals group, I ended up getting married and then now have a baby. So I'm kind of like not in the category of young professionals anymore. So I am very happy that Domonique, Jonathan, and Chris and others have taken over and really shine their light.
And we're going to start something called midlife. You can start the midlife GlobalMindED young professional.
Sure.
Young at heart people. But and just for one more minute, Phoung, just tell very briefly your story and why you're so passionate about this, because you are one of the role models that we really support, you know, with GlobalMindED. So just real brief, and then we're going to go to Domonique.
Oh, thank you. So a lot of my story, I was born in Vietnam. It was during a time when it was after the war and the Vietnam War. And I was able to come to the United States as a political refugee when I was 5 years old. So I'm first generation to college, first generation to graduate school in my family. My mom didn't even complete the 5th grade. And I wanted to get into healthcare at a very young age because it was back in the village where I grew up, where I experienced in the hospital while visiting a family member that a mother and her unborn child died because they didn't have enough money up front to pay the providers to do a C-section. So at that point, I decided I just want to go into healthcare and have that authority to really say yes to a patient when they need it. And the challenge in the village is that you're not exposed to a lot of different professions. You just see like what's in front of you. And what villagers also always see is that the highest level of authority in the clinic is a physician. So that's what I wanted to do in the first place, to really focus on my education and my career in the medical field. So I got my degree in biochemistry, and then I entered into medical school to try to go towards the route of becoming a physician. But then I got so many advice from my mentors as I was kind of telling them about my passion, how I wanted to change healthcare and make an impact, and as a whole, not just in the clinic. So they taught me about healthcare administration. And I thought, oh, there's another role that I can take in healthcare where I can make a difference. So I did find out that there are other people in healthcare, like the CEO and the vice presidents and the managers and all those other folks in healthcare that are not clinically trained but have such a huge influence on the final outcomes of a patient. And when you look at right now within our healthcare system, about 80% of the healthcare costs and burden are due to preventable causes and social determinants of health. Well, I decided that I wanted to go into the another route and really make an impact that way. So currently I'm doing population health over at the Anschutz medical campus, and I'm loving it. And just really growing my career from here and making an impact in my industry.
Thank you, Phoung, and thanks for your leadership and your vision. And now we're going to go to the person that you passed the torch to, Domonique. And Domonique is the president of the Young Professionals Group. And we just thought it'd be interesting for her to share what her vision and goals are for those who join this organization and the kinds of resources and experiences that the group provides. So Domonique, tell us a little bit about your story. Well, and I'll just say too, I've known Domonique, I think for at least 5 years. And when she was getting her master's degree, she was one of our interns, and that's how we first started working together. So I've known her for a long time.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Carol. And thank you so much, Phoung. You left some big shoes for me to fill, and it's been a lot of fun just being challenged and pushed in ways that I'm growing and seeing other people grow around me. So I love the Young Professional Leaders Group. I started this year. Phoung and Julie passed over the torch to me. And really what my goal is for the Young Professional Leaders Group is, as a young professional leader myself in corporate America, I graduated college in 2 years, and my goal was really to climb the corporate ladder. And I ran into a lot of obstacles that I just wasn't necessarily prepared for. And I wanted access to leadership development. And as a minority leader, the opportunity to get access to that is even smaller. And so my way of thinking was, if I can't get it, I'm going to create it myself. And that's when I went to get my master's degree and really get more clarity, get more background and credibility to add to my resume to talk about leadership development. And that's where I met Carol. And so the last few years, I've been really thinking through some fundamental pillars that are essential for young professional leaders. And that is around building an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's really around building resilience, being able to operate in ambiguous situations, being able to work in a global nature, being able to work without little to no structure. And those soft skills aren't necessarily taught in college, right? And another pillar is financial literacy. I think that financial literacy is the key to unlocking anybody's innate potential. It's really hard to solve really big world problems when you can't put food on your table or you're worried about your family and friends, right? So we really want to unlock and provide education around finances, whether you're trying to get into college, whether you're trying to pay off student loans, buy a house, save up for the future, really just getting literacy around how to do that and create sustainability for yourself. And most importantly, I think when you go into a job, school teaches you how to work for money rather than having money work for you. And I think we really need to change that concept and flip it on its head to really build sustainability for ourselves. And then lastly, mental health. And mental health is definitely a buzzword that's going around right now, but I think it's so, so important as a young professional leader, any type of leader, to really take care of yourself and really take care, like if you have anxiety or depression or anything that's going on in your life and you need someone to talk to. I know that for me, it was really difficult for me to build authenticity and vulnerability. I thought that I had to do everything on my own. I didn't want to show anybody that I was weak. And I realize now that that is weakness. You have to find a place to empower yourself and create a space to be vulnerable and authentic so that people can actually help you to achieve the goals that you set out for yourself. And so Young Professional Leaders Group is really that place, that space for everybody to come in, talk about their problems, whether it be in the community, at school, in a workplace, but really utilize the skills and the people around us to help us move our mission forward, whatever that may be. So that's really the goal for the Young Professional Leaders Group moving forward. Like I said, with Julie and Phoung, they've built a really great network for me to build off of. There's about 100 young professional leaders that were engaged in the last few years that they had started the program. So I'm really looking forward to having more podcast discussions. We're now ultimately in a Zoom face-to-face, not face-to-face environment anymore. So we're gonna have some problem-solving sessions online. We're really gonna walk students through, young professionals through how to build sustainability for themselves and create a network online now that the environment has changed a little bit.
Carol, you're muted, but
Dominique,
Domonique, bravo.
I just did it. Yeah. And I just want to say that I think it's refreshing to have leadership where people can be human and people can be real and people can be authentic. And we don't have to walk around like we're perfect people. And, you know, I think the more we are real and we can share our disappointments and the kinds of things that are challenging to us, then we are teaching the next generation that they can deal with those things too. And that's a real gift of leadership. And I think that is something that threads through all of you. And I just find it very, very refreshing. And I hope that more people, I'm 57, I hope more people like 57 and older can get that, because I think it's what the world needs right now, to heal and to be, you know, as great as we all can be. So thanks, Dominique, for that. And then let's go to Dr. Jonathan. Jonathan is also, like Phoung, with the interest in medicine. He's a medical doctor. And I would love to know about your journey from medicine to entrepreneurship and then to leadership, because you are so passionate about this group. And we'd just love for you to tell a little bit about your story and then some of the goals and the vision that you have as well.
Sure thing. I was lucky enough to be highlighted in a GlobalMindED newsletter earlier on this month, or at the end of last month, that kind of gave a more in-depth look at one of the pivotal moments in my medical career, shifting gears from going to practice medicine to going to find a way to kind of look at the big picture, as Phoung put earlier. And the highlight reel is kind of something like this. I was in high school, I almost died. I started being very grateful for every day of my life. I continued to work hard and diligently in undergrad, kind of just blinders on, very focused, very like in view of what I wanted to do. Went to medical school, worked really hard, started seeing patients, loved that, loved surgery, was in it, all in it. And then I kind of came off on a much lighter rotation where I didn't have a lot of structure, didn't have a lot of framework, and had a bit of a mental breakdown. I had major depressive episode that kind of really took me out of my element. I was in this weird space where no one was asking a lot of me, but I just couldn't really navigate my feelings. I couldn't really figure out the best steps. I was kind of in an impasse where my normal pull the trigger, do what you got to do kind of attitude wasn't kicking in, and I was really lost at sea. It kind of took a whole month of me just like not leaving my apartment and not talking to people to touch base with my mom, who was kind of already in tune with something being wrong and was like, you know, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know, but I need help. And just really that first kind of touch point of like reaching out for help was very critical to kind of get me back on the path. And after some time, some meds and just kind of slowly acclimating back to that demand of medical school. I was able to successfully complete that degree, but in the midst of that journey, I kind of saw an opportunity for myself to tap more into my really fundamental engineering background, problem solving, and big picture creative perspective view to approach solving healthcare problems from a different vantage point. And so after reaching out to the NIH, getting some money to kind of do my own research in a space of innovation and technology in healthcare to better streamline and, you know, equip physicians and patients to take care of themselves, I realized I was like, my passion for technology, my passion for education and access to education, and my passion for healthcare and access to healthcare leads me down this natural path of innovating in that space and becoming an entrepreneur in that space. And my journey since then has been taken me all over the world. I've spent months in mainland China visiting tens of different cities and just kind of becoming more culturally enriched and global myself. And that ultimately landed me back on the doorstep of GlobalMindED after a couple year hiatus where Domonique recruited me in for this initiative designed for giving the skills and giving the framework and giving the support network to young professionals who want to do some of the same things that I feel like I had no guidance on. Like, I remember when I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to finish up med school and look into like how to get into startups or entrepreneurships activities. There was one website, and you know what it was called? Dropout Club. It was for people who went to grad school or med school, and they were like, oh, you know, I gotta look for industry because like I don't want to do it or I can't hack it. And I was like, this is not enough guidance. This is not enough information. And, you know, it might be the road less traveled, but it shouldn't have to be.
Totally. And I just want to also salute you so much, Jonathan, because I think that the mental health issues are such a big issue and they're kind of the elephant in the room. And people don't really talk about those things. And I personally really relate. I have had a father growing up, and he was a World War II guy, but he had 3 nervous breakdowns, and we lost all our money when I was in 5th grade. And I really want, you know, the Betty Ford of mental illness to come on the scene. And maybe collectively what you guys are doing will be that in part with everything else you're doing. But we need people to be able to say, you know, people don't ask for mental illness issues. And that's something that we really need to understand, access and equity, to be able to be far more compassionate with people. So thank you for being able to share your story and to understand how much it's going to help other people that you're able to share that. So
Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Very cool journey. And now we're going to hear from somebody who I just had the best time meeting, was connected through a common friend. Chris is an entrepreneur and he's a big motivator. He has so much positive energy and he's really, really, really resourceful. And I just want to ask him about his special mojo in the world and how he can leverage that with young professionals, because if every young person has the attitude that Chris has, they'll be able to do anything. And that's just why I'm so glad that I met him and that he was interested in working with all of you, because I knew that would be just a great fit if he was up for it. So Chris, unmute yourself and then tell us.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction that was. Thank you so much, Carol. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for including me. So I kind of feel like I've gone through a couple different careers. My background is in child neuroscience and software. Crazy, right? But along the way, I've kind of maintained my focus on the intersection of early childhood development, education, technology. And so I've had different experiences in that kind of alignment. My kind of attitude about people and motivation and resourcefulness is sort of like, I love working with people who are hungry. And that just is I know myself enough now to know that that is a huge source of energy for me. And so the more I surround myself with people who are just fiercely trying to work on something, solve something, they're hungry for something, whether it's self-improvement, you know, in personal development, professional development, or they just have some kind of splash that they know they want to make in the world, that is such a huge, you know, like nuclear force for me in charging people up. So I would say that, like, you know, I'm happy to, you know, motivate people, but it's less like rah rah guy. Like there's some of that, like there's some a little bit of cheerleader, but I would say like the best way that I've found to connect with people is one-to-one mentoring, which is something that we're doing here with young professional leaders, right? Like one-to-one mentoring and listening to what intrinsically motivates people, and then figuring out how to like unleash that, right? So asking good questions to unleash that, I think, is sort of like the secret weapon there. So I'm super happy to be here, and I can't wait to jam with all of you. I think this is a wonderful group, and the Young Professional Leaders like kind of team is working really, really hard to like really polish some like evidence-based programming that is financial literacy focused, mental health focused, like all these guys are saying, and really just focus on the individual and like individual goals. So I'm super pumped to be here.
So this is where I just say, like, these people represent these incredible people. Now, is Jesse here? Because I would love for Jesse to say some words too.
Yes, I am, Carol.
Jesse,
Hey.
tell us about yourself and speak up just a little bit, because it sounds a little bit remote on the connection. But Jesse is also part of this awesome group of people, and he just planned the event that they had a couple of weeks ago. So Jess, tell us about yourself, and also, you know, the cool things that you're doing professionally, and also the event that you planned.
Sure. So let me just go to a quick background about my role with GlobalMindED and YPAC. So within GlobalMindED, I work with Domonique, Carol, Chris, and Jonathan, and I run the mental health forum, so to speak. I took on this role last year, or earlier last year, because I want to redefine what it means to be neurodiverse, what it means to have, what mental health means, so to speak, because I have Asperger's syndrome, and I want to, you know, bring to the forefront of what it means to be neurodiverse, such as ADHD, OCD, Asperger's, autism, and so forth. So within the mental health space, I recently had a podcast regarding neurodiversity in the workplace. We had two guest speakers. One works with the state of Colorado, another gentleman runs an organization called TAC, which they teach children and young adults work skills so they can get a decent paying job if they have autism. So great to have those people on board. In addition to mental health, I'm also launching a footwear startup. So unrelated, you know, completely out of the loop, but that's how within that startup I got involved with Carol. So those two things brought me into GlobalMindED, and I'm very happy to be a part of this venture. So it's been wonderful so far.
Thank you so much, Jesse. And then there's somebody on the line named Franna. And Franna, we would love for you to share about yourself and your story, and anyone else in the chat that's part of this group or wants to ask questions or whatever. But Franna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks, Carol. Yeah, so technical difficulty, sorry about that. So there's like 3 Jonathans in this chat somehow, which I feel like is Jonathan's dream. And so, so my name is Franna Burtness Adams. I think I think that journey, right, is always being shaped. And so I could say my most recent story of my journey is I think I grew up in a small town in Alaska, and I knew it was time to get out when graduation came around. And so I went to the opposite coast. I went to Boston and lived there for about 6 years and did everything right. So I did like the undergraduate, the graduate. I got a free graduate degree working in the Department of Student Affairs, got exposed to leadership development, equity and inclusion work, and absolutely loved it. And then after, I really wanted to kind of take some time off and enjoy life a little bit more versus like that back of the mind, constant need to read a research paper, right? And so I went back home to Alaska, and it was really interesting when I started to try to get back into the professional world. It had really changed a couple years later, and so I kept trying to figure out how to how can I fit into a job? Like that was always kind of the narrative I told myself. And so, and probably within the last like year or two, what the incredible city of Denver has brought to me is more of an entrepreneurship mindset. And so thinking about like, maybe I could create what I'm looking for, and maybe I could create the life I want for myself now, and not wait for it to be like this dream down the line. I think that's one of the things I assume a lot of people are kind of going through with everything happening with the pandemic, is like, why wait in a lot of ways. And so I'm diving full in, and I was lucky enough to meet Domonique at a networking event. And it was one of those crazy moments where we both turn around and look at each other. And I just looked at her and was like, I heard you say leadership development. And she said the same thing. And we set up a one-on-one. And it's truly been a gift. This group is inspiring. They hold you accountable. They help you grow. They ask those good questions no one else in your life is going to ask. And I am so grateful to be a part of this. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Franna, so much for sharing that. And I will tell you all, when I was in my 20s, I would have loved to have had a group like this. And some of you know this, but for some of the listeners, I was in publishing, and I was the first female vice president when I was 26, and then their first female VP when I was 30. And my whole circle of friends was almost all at work, at that time. And just this idea that you can be in your 20s or even in your 30s, and that sometimes to go forward with your interests and your abilities, sometimes you have to go sideways, and sometimes you have to go around, and sometimes you have to go in these different directions. And I think there are so many ways for people to really build their skills, when sometimes the job you're in isn't necessarily always able to foster that at the highest level. And so in my case, I started writing a book kind of on, just to really keep my head screwed on, because the job was such a stretch for me. And then that became kind of something that opened up all these other doors. So I just see in each of you, the way that you cross-pollinate and inspire each other is really, really, really cool. So I just, I love watching you guys and what you're doing. And now let's just take some questions from folks. And you guys, I'm in the office. I haven't been here in 2 months, and I'm going to turn off the phone. It just keeps ringing.
Well, while Carol's doing that, I'm going to take this opportunity to plug Global-Minded Young Professionals. In the chat, I have included links to our YouTube channel and the awesome podcast that Jesse and Franna have hosted. Also, we'll be having 2 new videos being added this week and more to come. If you're in the chat right now and you're a professional leader who would like to engage with us, either because you have a business or an organization that you want to let people know about what you're doing, just reach out to us, and we're happy to sit down and set a time to promote what you're doing, talk about what you're doing, or have a podcast. And if you're a young professional leader who wants to get involved in some of the activities that we're doing, please, by all means, join us. I'll be dropping a link to our Slack in the chat as well, and that is one of the best ways to get hooked in with us right away and start doing things. Back to Karen.
Okay, and I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea, because Chelsea's working very closely with Rocio Perez and Adrian Rosado and Melinda Kane, and they're doing a lot of programming for our first gen class of 2020. So Chelsea, and she did a wonderful webinar a couple weeks ago, and she is first gen rock star, lives in Harlem, which is really close to my old neighborhood when I lived in New York City. So Chelsea, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Hi, I'm sorry, everyone. I had myself video off for a few minutes, but so much of what you've said has been so incredibly refreshing. And I think one thing that sticks out is the fact that you're building this community where you all are connecting with each other. I think sometimes when you think about networking and you think about the fancy word social capital, you think you have to wait till you're in your 30s or your 40s to start building your relationship, and that's so wrong. Like the fact that you're building these bridges with each other now, I promise you, it's only going to lead to so many dynamic experiences that you can't even believe. Some of you might be business partners. You might meet your spouses through each other. I mean, the sky is the limit. It really is. But I think we don't talk enough about relationships and how important it is in being successful, particularly first gen. It just adds another layer that's so important in how you go through the world and how you collaborate and form partnerships with people. So, that's the big thing I would mention. I think there was a little bit brought up about COVID. I think all of us have so many thoughts about this current season we're in. And the thing that I can tell you is just keep taking steps forward. I feel like over the last few weeks, I've spoke to people who graduated right after September 11th, right after the 2008 crisis. And each and every one that I spoke with, and this is a different situation, so I want to be like respectful that this is really hard and very different. But I think the big theme for all of them was, Chelsea, I'm good. It was a hard moment at first, but when I look back, that was one of the most difficult challenges of my life. But now, I look back and I learned something in that season, and I looked at the world in a different way. So I'm just hopeful that all of you will just understand, like, if we can get through this and excel and our mindsets can be focused on what's possible, the sky's the limit. So please continue just to move forward and know that we're rooting you on. You're so exceptional, and we're so proud of all that you're all doing. Yeah.
Yay.
We're so proud.
Thanks, Chelsea. Thank you so much. Anybody want to jump in from the audience with questions or other comments? Kelsey or Clive? I'm excited. Clive is here. Anne is here. Kylie.
I would love to piggyback on some of the conversation about relationships, if we have space for that.
Yeah.
So Chelsea, I'm like just resonating hardcore because like literally everything is relationships. Like everything you do is with a person, right? If you're in business and you're working direct to consumer, that's a human being. If you're a bit in business and you're working with another business, there's another human being that you're interacting with. Like, right, when I first moved to Denver, one of the first things that I did was make sure that I met Carol Carter, because Carol Carter is connected to a bazillion people and she does amazing things that are aligned with my interests and goals, right? So I was like, this is a person I need to connect with. And I walked into her office, we had a meeting set up, and I walked in and I said, how can I help you? Right? Like, I just was like, how do I just get into your orbit? Because I think working with people that you want to work with is one kind of way that I've moved in my own career. Not that it's for everyone, but like one of the ways that I've designed my life is kind of like with that perspective, like finding the people you want to work with, not necessarily like the company you want to work with, right? But maybe the individuals, not necessarily the project, but the people working on it. I just feel like that is such a huge thing. So whether it's personal relationships, work relationships, all of those things are based in the way that you interact with people, the way that you treat each other. So I just wanted to like kind of piggyback that and just give like a real life example of like, here's something that I've done that's worked for me and that like maybe would work for other people as well.
Awesome. Anybody else from, let's see, Clive says some colleges have online only classes in the fall, entire Cal State system. What are some ideas for relationship building with these students?
So just to ask a clarifying question, is this, you're a professor, or you have students already, you have a class, or are you just thinking like, there are students that are out there, how do they connect with each other? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to clarify, like.
And Clive, feel free if you want to unmute yourself too, and just chat.
So I think the answer is yes for professors engaging with students. So I think there's a lot of different ways. We have probably more ways than ever to connect with people. You have social media, and then you also have tools that are designed for business communications, right? I think the oldest one is probably email, but it's also probably the clunkiest and most obnoxious one, because there's so many email. Like, I don't know about you, but I get probably, I could do the math, it's probably 500 to 1,000 emails a week, right? So like, that is not like the best way to communicate, right? There's probably a better way. So I think what what I would do in that sort of situation is the answer is it depends. So I think like in your case, reaching out to the people that you're connected with and kind of understanding where they are, right? So if you're talking to college students, you're probably going to say like something more along the lines of let's communicate on Slack or Discord, right? If you're working with you know, a younger audience, you might be looking like Instagram is the new email for young people. Like that is a real thing. So there's different ways. The answer is it depends. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts or feelings about it.
I'll say one thing, and I'm gonna model it to you all since we're all together. The other thing is social media in general, Instagram a big piece, on the professional and LinkedIn. It's just no longer optional to be, LinkedIn is no longer optional. You're all professionals. And I will say this is the way, particularly now that people, except for our essential workers, people are working remotely. LinkedIn studies have shown that their number of users, their number of engagement and activities has skyrocketed. And so I would just say, even if you get comfortable checking in onto LinkedIn a few times a week and just making that a muscle that you flex just by seeing what's going on. Anytime that you have any major accomplishment, and I know it's hard for students to sometimes want to share the wins in your life. I live in New York City. I'm sorry, it's the ambulance.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's just really, really important to share those updates with people, because there have been many times where I've shared an update or someone else has shared an update, and I'm just like, we need to connect. Why have we not connected? We're like connected on LinkedIn, but we haven't had a conversation. And so I think that that's a really, really important thing to do. Any webinar that you're on, say, I'd love to connect with anyone on the webinar, you know, post webinar, here's my LinkedIn address, because you never know. And it's a light way to grow your network and show that you're willing to meet new people and get in new spaces.
Yeah, and maybe we should have a you know, global-minded young professionals group on LinkedIn, because I will tell you guys a little secret. When I was starting Global Minded, I literally used LinkedIn, and I would troll people and go, there's a person that would be interested in what we're doing. There's a person that, and I just went through and I like invited all the diversity and inclusion people from the different businesses. I didn't know these people from anywhere. And I feel like that is a huge way that we kind of built our base. And now, you know, we got like 12,000 people opening our newsletter a day. And a lot of it is because I could kind of go through there and go, this person seems very mission aligned, and then reach out to them. And actually a lot of them have come and have been speakers and things. So I totally agree with you, Chelsea. And I think it's a powerful vehicle. I don't have a clue about Instagram, and I feel like I need to get a clue about that. So
you do, actually, and that's what I was going to say next is LinkedIn and those stats that she cited is like totally accurate. The amount of people, business development people, they're like, people are just waiting at home and they're like reaching out, trying to figure out things for their organization, trying to find like answers to questions to this professional network. LinkedIn, it's established, it's known. What you really need to do is you need to look at these new modalities that are being used. And I don't mean to say that Instagram's new, because it's not. But if it's so new that you're like, I'm unfamiliar with it and I have no experience with it, change that. If you don't know what TikTok is, figure it out. Because here's the deal, especially for young aspiring entrepreneurs, like they're starting when they're 12. They're making videos on TikTok. By the time they're 16, they have businesses, they have money, and they are doing things. And sometimes they don't have the right guidance in place and they don't have the right structure of people, but it doesn't mean that they aren't change makers. So you really need to figure these things out before everybody's already talking about LinkedIn, okay? The next thing, figure it out, get in there and use it to your advantage, no matter what your business is. No excuses.
I want you to tutor me in that, because you know what? I was really slow to the table with Twitter. And I love Twitter. I love it, but I was just slow to get there. So I think this is why all the intergenerational people, they need each other for these reasons. Yeah, for sure. Okay, other questions, you guys could put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I'll tell you what time we are. We've got about 15 more minutes. So Any other questions for these awesome people? And there's no stupid questions. So
I have a question.
yes.
Hello. Okay. Hi. So just to introduce myself, I'm Kylie. I'm 15. So, you know, there's that.
You're our secret shopper.
Yes, I am. I'm here mostly to just observe and just to get some good advice from everyone. But just to give some background on myself, when I was 7 years old, I started a business called Tomorrow's Lemonade Stand that teaches kids from the ages of 7 to 11 how to become entrepreneurs through creativity, risk, passion, and empathy. And I've pretty much been running that since. And obviously, this good old global pandemic has affected my life a lot as a high schooler. And I've noticed that everyone has been talking a lot about making connections with people. And I in no way know what I'm going to do with my life right now. But I think in just regard to the fact that I'm about to go into my junior year of high school, and I know that's a really important one. And I think I'm just wondering if there is any good advice people have in regards to making connections with people and forming that network. That was my question.
Domonique, you want to go first?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're off to a great start. I was not thinking that way at 15. So you're off to a great start. I think that in COVID-19 times, it is a little bit more difficult to go out and make that network. But you have us, you have the Young Professional Leaders Group. I think it's important when you meet somebody, follow up with them, you know, schedule one-on-ones and continue to have those meetings with them, and they'll continue to introduce you to other people and people that are more like-minded with you and more in alignment with you. So I would say that if you do meet somebody that's in alignment with you and has the same interest, continue to have those conversations and ask them to connect you with other people, and you'll continue to build your network from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else for Kylie?
Yeah, Jonathan, do you want to go first?
Oh, you man.
Okay, cool. So thank you for joining us and for bravely asking a question with a group of people you've never met before. I think like one thing that you're doing right now is jumping up, being brave, asking a question in a group of a bunch of people that you've never met before. Congratulations. I'm curious, like I am a firm believer that a lot of advice is, here are the 8 numbers that I use to win the lottery, and here they are, right? So like I would ask you a question. I would return your question with another question, which is, what are some things maybe that you've tried so far that haven't worked, or that have sort of worked? Or maybe what are some things that you think you should try but you're not sure about it yet? It's not a trick question. Not a trick question. There's no right answer.
That's called a Chris question. He does that very well.
I don't know if I'm just supposed to answer that right now because I can't think of any off the top
You
of my
don't
head.
have to. That's okay.
I think that while you kind of are like mulling that over, because answering some like questions to figure out what your lotto numbers are is, as he put it, is actually like a big foundation that that's one of my lottery numbers. It's knowing myself. And then the tougher part is being honest with myself and honest about myself to other people. There is a lot of right things to say in right situations. We're in a social situation, and so maybe it's more comfortable or more right for me to not stand up for what I believe in, or like hold my convictions true, but like and you know, you aren't always going to be received with open arms when you do that, and it's challenging. But you know, being yourself, as like way cheesy and like basic as that is, like, I mean actually doing it, because if you're actually doing it, then it's actually kind of hard. And on top of that is finding out how to open yourself up, open up your vulnerabilities to other people, and being okay with the idea of that going poorly. And that's even tougher. But when you find the people who will accept you for you and your vulnerabilities, now you're cooking. Like that shit is a true connection.
It's so true. That's so true. And I'll also say, Kylie, that I think the world is made up of your supporters and your detractors. And there will always be people who don't necessarily understand, who you are or what you're up to. And I think if you can go through the world not really worrying about the detractors and continuing to cultivate your supporters, it will be easier to be true to yourself, and you kind of don't have to worry about what other people think, because you kind of can just keep that true north going for yourself.
Thank you all so much. That was such good advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking up. And anybody else have some questions?
I also just wanted to point out, Kylie, the Young Professional Leaders Group is going to have a networking speed networking type event next Thursday. And I was
There's no dating.
There's no dating.
There's no dating.
The intention is to find a network and find people to mentor and get assistance moving forward. So
yeah,
helping you start that network.
That'd be awesome. One other thing, Kylie, to think of where you are right now, and you're 16, who are you a mentor for? In other words, these people right now, you're engaging, you're meeting them, and who among your circle of friends are generously helping, like the 11-year-olds and the 12-year-olds and the bridges and the transitions that they're going to be going through, because these are all like feedback loops of how things happen for people. So give that some thought as well. And maybe that's one of the things this summer that you'll really become that mentor, for some other folks based on what you've done, which I think would be awesome. And it looks like Clive has, he said, I'd also add virtual happy hour with your new class so everyone can get to know one another. Set up similar to this webinar. Everyone can bring their favorite drink. And you know what? My husband went to a thing a few weeks ago, and they dressed up as people in the 70s. And he made a little, like a popsicle stick with a picture of his face from when he was in high school, and he wore a leisure suit. And I just think like people can do so many fun things right now that are just creative, to use humor to kind of really get on to the other side of things. So any other questions for these folks? Let's see if anyone else has. Don't be shy. This is a good time for any questions you might have, or even comments. Let's see if anybody's, and you can feel free, if you're more comfortable, you can put some things in the chat. Nancy said it's great. Anybody else? Any other questions? Well, if there aren't other questions, and feel free to put them in the chat if you want, maybe we can just start with Phoung and have each of you just give kind of a closing insight for the rest of the people who are here. Phoung?
Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. Yes, this was a great session. Thanks, Carol, for gathering us all together. And I am so proud of Domonique, Jonathan, Chris, Jesse, all the new leaders of global-minded young professionals. I feel like, wow, we didn't do enough, do we? You guys are incredibly talented, and I feel that you will bring a lot of good to the young professionals group, and then everyone would do incredibly well. A last closing comment, just during the time of COVID, for young professionals and for all professionals, is that this is a time that it gives us an opportunity to be creative in our different industries, because through our industries are created for a reason, because there are clients or customers or patients that need our help, and we improve their lives. And during the time of COVID is when they are experiencing challenges and struggling the most. So I know that for my particular field, when in the healthcare industry, we run ambulatory centers like primary care clinics, and now patients don't want to come in because they're afraid of getting sick, and providers are are afraid of getting sick as well, but they still want to connect because patients need help. So we found a lot of different ways to help patients. And also, what about patients like the older generation who don't have access to virtual healthcare, who don't have access to all of the home health devices because of economics, their social situation, or just different factors. And so we had to be creative to even serve every patient population, especially the older patient population that are at higher risk for these conditions. So I would just really say my last statement is this is an opportunity to be creative and to continually think about why you got into your position in the first place. It is to help the people that you're serving, and they need the most help right now.
Thank you, Phoung. Domonique?
Yes, I would just say thank you guys so much for having us on this call. Congratulations to the new graduates this year. That's a huge achievement. Keep moving forward. I think that in COVID-19 times, yes, it is scary. There's a lot of ambiguity and unknowns, but being a professional leader doesn't stop. And you always have the ability to dream bigger, regardless of what is going on in life. If you're in alignment with what your passion is and you have clarity, you can always achieve what it is that you put your mind to, and you surround yourself with the right people. So just stay positive, stay moving forward. I think always have in the back of in the front of your mind, respect to your mental health and understanding how you feel. Sit in that emotion, speak about it, be real about it, talk about it. I've had some really interesting emotions that have bubbled up within me in COVID-19 times with this, illusion of control. And I had to talk about that with my team and how to rid of my ego and, trying to be perfect and maintain this lifestyle that essentially isn't moving me forward. Mm-hmm. And so I think that now is a time that's really demanding us to stop doing the same thing and expecting the same results. And let's really reflect on who we are and how we show up and make the necessary changes to create what we want for our life. So just keep moving forward, stay positive, and you got it. And we're here to help you.
Yay. Jonathan, and then we'll go to Chris.
2020 is a time to be alive. And if you're listening to this or you're hearing this message, you are alive. And so reach out to those you love and let them know, because you don't necessarily know that you, them, or the world will be around tomorrow. And be grateful for anything that you can be grateful for and share that gratitude.
Awesome. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone who has joined, said something, asked questions, thoughtfully listened. Just thank you for your attention and for your engagement. If you're here, it's probably because you care about young people. Either you are a young person and you're thinking about what do I do, or you're someone who's thinking about how can I help young people who are finding their place in the world, or going after their kind of dream career. And I'm super grateful, and I want to say thank you to all of you who are here to, provide some, carve out part of your busy day. Because I know from my experience right now, pretty much everybody's schedules are a little sideways. So thank you for coming out and putting in that effort and showing that you're here to invest in that. And I think that's sort of my last thought, which is, investing in yourselves and that next wave of people who will make impact, and thinking about what are the tools and resources that they've grown, and mindset and worldview that they've grown up with, and how do we help lift them up, right? How do we help move them into that next stage of the career? And I think Kylie's a great example of someone who's out there trying to do stuff, tuning in, right? When it would be so much easier for her to just be on YouTube instead of here today, right? And someone who is taking action and putting herself in an environment where she's challenging herself and maybe taking a little bit of risk and raising her hand. So thank you everyone who's here for your interest and commitment to helping young people. and the work that you're doing to develop yourselves in addition to this next generation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will just end with, I always think of two things, gratitude and forgiveness. And I think that those are some of the most powerful things that anyone has a choice every day to really engage those things, and that those are the great healers of the world. And I think right now the world needs healing on a bunch of different levels, and we are a big community where we can heal ourselves, and we can also heal in much bigger ways in all the different roles that we play. So I just want to thank all of you, and I want to invite you guys for the other events we have this week and Friday, a very wonderful celebration, and you don't have to be graduating to attend it, but we have so many inclusive leaders who are just as inspiring as all of you, and we just want to grow our network so that we become millions and then billions of people. So looking forward to doing that with all of you, and thank you so much for your leadership and your time, and look forward to supporting you all always. And we hope that a year from now, or a year from now in a couple weeks, we're all in person again, and everyone can be part of that gigantic network and be meeting people in person as well. So we're just like praying for that vaccine as soon as we can get it. So thanks to all of you guys, and have a great night. Bye,
Thanks
guys.
for hosting, Carol.